Okay, it's 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on July 6th, 2025, and the Dozenspeed channel is live with select video commentaries.
And there was much rejoicing.
Smooth, wasn't it? Welcome everyone to the inaugural Dozenspeed Director Commentary livestream as I go off script and discuss videos I've published over the years. This might be a little different than what you're used to, and I hope you aren't put off by the lack of a creator cam even in a small corner of the screen. At the moment, I don't know how this is going to go over, but fair warning, the plan is to facilitate my desire to share some insight and experiences about making my films and my YouTube channel. I think I'm going to be commenting on the videos primarily, but with a live chat open, who knows how badly things could go off topic. Also, the discussion may get very self-adulating and self-absorbed, so be ready to cope with that. I try to keep the fourth wall intact in my regular video catalog, so I hope this can be a distinct series of content and a great way to better interact with fans and viewers. I'm sorry for the way the stream looks. It was the best I could get the software to cooperate and show things how I wanted them to. I've prepared a few presentation materials here, but otherwise I'm pretty much winging it. The idea here is to stream for roughly 90 minutes based on about an hour's worth of videos from my own catalog, and if I can manage it, chat and answer questions for anyone who might be watching this live. Hopefully the chat will stay civil, so there will be no need to hide it when this stream goes archival. So if we pull up the old Dozenspeed channel here, I have created this playlist of videos to start with. As you can see, the first one is the very newest of Delmar Boulevard, and we have two other St. Louis subjects. About 2/3 of my videos are St. Louis related, by the way. But before the main event, let's check in on the Central Comment Command Control Console as a stalling tactic in hopes more viewers will show up. This is a great chance to complain about one glaring functionality oversight of an otherwise powerful tool. As you can see here, all of the comments are gathered here for me in one space. However, I like to use emoticons when I reply, and they don't give you that option, so I end up having to go onto the video oftentimes to click anyway. So we're just going to do a couple of these. The most recent one was on Farewell Fort Taco here. Man, I loved Fort Taco, RIP. Nice comment, you get a heart. And now this next one, which I've been saving for this live stream, if I may admit, is from a guy I think of as my YouTube buddy. Historically marked, he's got a larger channel with a lot more videos, and he comes in my comments from time to time. It's very nice of him to extend his presence to a smaller YouTube channel. But he says, after you passed vintage vinyl, I looked at the date when you filmed this. As I'm sure you're aware, the bank and other surrounding buildings have been torn down to make way for more high-rise apartment buildings. Woohoo! If you ask me, it's a crap idea, but whatever. I've driven the eastern part a few times in the past, and it's always sad to see beautifully architectural buildings go to waste. Well, yes, I generally agree with that, and actually I have not been through there since they tore all that down. I don't know if I was aware of it or not. The video we were talking about here, Delmar Boulevard from one end to the other, was filmed 2 years ago and just was published last month. So, you can see behind the scenes here that we have nice little AI comments. I can just click here if I wanted to. Yeah, I think the old buildings are getting raised for some rather uninspired construction. I feel ya. Thanks for watching. Or, thanks for the update. I appreciate it. I have to agree the wrecking ball is a mixed bag. I probably feel more accurate towards this one. But the proper thing to do here would be to go on to the actual video and find the comment and make a reply here. Actually, I just did reply verbally, so I don't know if this is worth my time to make everyone sit here, all one of you sit here while I answer comments. Oh, why not? We're stalling for tactics. I already thought out what I was going to write, and it all just kind of slipped out of my head here, so I guess I'll just answer this here and now, and I'll try to write this up later. Yeah, I didn't really quite know that. I don't know if a bank is such a big loss, although I have been seeing quite a few mid-century modern banks get torn down around town in the last couple of years, and that kind of bums me out a little bit. I don't know why, but I get it. You got to increase the tax base, and I just want to say you got to remember buildings that were built 70, 80, 100 years ago that we think are cool now were probably once annoying to someone else who didn't want to see a new big building go up in place of what used to be there. I think that's just human nature, and a good perspective to try to keep in mind. Bigger fish to fry, sadder things declining that could be saved than rather, kind of plain bank building. If you look at Google Maps, there's some rather fresh pictures of it from April, so you can see it under construction and exactly what historically Marked is talking about here. All right, and let's go back to our community tab. This is kind of an odd one. I don't really know what the game is here. I'm just going to leave it alone. And then this one, I read this a while ago, and this is a great comment from RJ Lori STL. And the reason I haven't answered it yet is because it deserves a well thought out comment. And my well thought out comments sometimes need to be in a time or place. So I'm not going to answer that right now either. And then here's another comment, just to, this is YouTube life, I guess, from Antoine Stokes on my tornado video, which did quite a bit better than I expected. I'm not sure how to take a comment like this, so I tend to not react because I'm not sure if he's being sarcastic or not. So anyways, let's quit messing around with the comments and get back to the point of the live stream. So we've pulled up the first playlist here. It is currently unlisted, but will go live and be added to the playlist collection after the streams start, or the streams are archived. If you can't tell, I'm rather new at this and not exactly professional. Like I told you, I'm going to wing it. So we're going to go ahead and try to play this as I have 1,000 windows open, trying to manage all of this. I thought I clicked this.
A man who works hard, sweats hard.
We're going to have to deal with
Allspice
commercials
fight sweat,
because,
so coach thought I was
too poor
slacking.
to afford
So I trained with my old spice, and I
We'll just skip that there. Dozenspeed Film Foundation video production is supported by viewers and members like you. I want to change that. All right, so this is I have the keyboard in my lap, but I don't even need it. So this is, I guess, like the debut of a series idea. I shot a bunch of these a couple years ago,
because that's pretty much all this is.
trying to document all the major, streets of St. Louis from one end to the other. I just think that's kind of an interesting topic. And no better place to start than Delmar Boulevard. The entire channel started with a Delmar Boulevard video, more or less. So I thought that would be pretty cool. I don't know how many of these I have, but as the previous narrator said, we're starting on the very eastern end, and I have to point out there on the left, it's just kind of amusing how they are selling their garage services as a safe alternative by citing how many break-ins of cars were at recent times around this time. And I don't know why I find that kind of amusing. I mean, it's smart business, I guess. The thing is about ups and downs, someone's always up and someone's always down. No matter how good or bad a thing sounds, there's always someone making a buck, I guess. All right. Don't have any chats to answer, so as you can see in the video, I put up a kind of a clock, which is pretty accurate to the trip, and it speeds up with the footage at the stoplights, you know, in sync, so you can kind of keep track of it. And there's a number of landmarks that we're going to pass by that I have other videos on, so I don't normally like to go on and on in my videos about what other videos I've made and urge you to watch them, but this is a good vehicle for that. Well, this is certainly awfully easy. I don't have much to comment on at this point, other than I guess I could tell you that the road is obviously quite rough. But we are coming up on, I guess, the first of our little landmarks up here. The big beige building way off in the distance is the Powell Symphony Hall, and behind it they used to have, I believe, some of their administrative offices, at least at one time, in a historic old house right there behind the building that dates back your typical 100 years. I believe they described it as in the Queen Anne style. I don't know much about my different styles of houses, but it was mentioned in something I read, and that's just stuck in my head. So you can see the house is no longer there, but I did get some pictures of it before they tore it down. The house was offered for free to anyone who would just move it off of the lot, and unfortunately no one had the money and connections to make that happen and get a free historical house out of the deal. And usually that stuff is pretty good. You know, they do that pretty well around here. That happens pretty frequently. I remember there was another house out by Vianney that met the same fate. They would sell you the house for $1 if you just took the thing away, and I don't think anyone did. I think they tore it down, and that was a little bit before I started trying to film lots of things. I don't know if you caught up there in the left-hand corner, very neat ghost sign for good old Channel 11 KPLR in the style of the 80s when that was probably painted. So here's a fun fact about Del Mar. It is not actually continuous. I could have warned you about this earlier. This is Spring Street, and you can see there's a big fat campus here that someone stuck in here at one point, perhaps in the 50s or 60s. And so to continue down Del Mar, you have to go around the block basically. And that was the Spring Church there on the left, the thing without a roof anymore. It looks like ancient ruins at this point, just a stone structure. I believe that burned down in 2000. And it's an interesting place, and one of those things I made a very small, low information video about. I just basically go in there and look at it for 3 minutes. I don't tell you anything useful about it, as you should probably expect from my videos. Low information. So this is Van Deventer. We were traveling on Washington to go around the school campus. I'm sure it has a name, but I don't remember what it is right now. And then we just swing a left back here onto Del Mar, and we continue all the way down to the western edge of it. This is one of the shorter roads probably in the series. It only took 29 minutes or so to travel the whole length of this road with optimal conditions, of course. But this part,
how much could you save by switching your car insurance to
be
Allstate?
interrupted by a commercial.
Well, let's say this is you.
This part here is still in the St. Louis city limits, and it's just about a block past Skinker, where it turns from city into county. The dynamic range on this street is quite interesting, I think. Obviously, some of the most desolate looking project homes can be found on it, and also on the western end, some very opulent historical mansions. And of course, Del Mar Boulevard has the well-known tourist district known as the Del Mar Loop, which was named after a trolley. A trolley they essentially put back after many decades of missing and too much arguing back and forth amongst the citizens. We don't need to get into that here and now, though. You can see how many holes there are, just empty lots where buildings used to be, but you still feel like quite a few are here and standing, and as long as they're still here and standing, they still have a chance at being restored. There was a couple there back on the left that I took a shot of a while ago, and noticed, I don't know if it was this footage just now or otherwise, but somebody bothered putting new windows in it, so the dream is alive. This intersection looks pretty hopeless. It seems like it's just waiting to be all sold off in one parcel to a developer who's gonna develop all four corners at once. Got yourself a tear down there on the left. And we're coming up on the intersection of Kings Highway here pretty soon. We're gonna pass through those two large buildings. And this is about the area that was hit by the May 16th, 2025 tornado. We're gonna go right through the heart of it, and you could even recognize the area from that other video. But this was 2 years, almost 2 years before all of that disaster hit, and the Aldi's was still functioning. I haven't been paying a lot of attention or follow up on it, trying to kind of stay out of their way, so I don't know. I don't get out as much anymore either, so I have too much video, not enough editing, so I gotta work on that balance. And I am. I've been working on the railroad, so to speak, all the livelong holiday. So this area is complicated. To your left there are some very wealthy old money historic neighborhoods, and if you go a couple blocks to the north to the right, it might look a little better these days, but at times it looks pretty ravaged. But gentrification, love it or hate it, is probably what's going on a little bit here. You can see that little building on the left. I mean, I've been noticing some these buildings being restored and not just replaced with new enterprises. I think there's a guy, he at least has ambitions for like 3 restaurants in that little section there, and the first one's doing pretty good. And we're at the intersection of Union and Del Mar, still in the city limits, and I really like that apartment building on the right. I don't know, I think that's really cool. And obviously, to beat a dead horse, they're not gonna build them like that again anymore, and that's fine. I don't mind building styles change and being an era of their time. I just don't like throwing them away so flippantly as we sometimes seem to. Speaking of building success stories, on the right is what they call now the Del Mar Divine, but it is a series of buildings originally occupied by St. Luke's Hospital, which is now out in West County, I believe, exclusively. But up until the 80s, they had this location, and it was their old historical location. Most of the buildings, I believe, if I remember, don't quote me on this, were built in the 20s, from like 1920 to 29, quite literally. There's like 6 or 7 of them. And when St. Luke's left, it became some kind of like a clinic, or doctor's offices. It was sort of like a, I don't know what the best way to describe it is in these modern times, but you know, it was a public medical facility, and I actually had to go in there on a couple of occasions back in the day, and it
Now that is a bundle.
it was a bit neglected and rough.
These jobs aren't exactly legal.
Oh,
Not exactly.
where's the skip button? Thank you. Okay, so annoying. I gotta get premium. Sounds like I'm a shill for YouTube Premium. And maybe I am. Maybe I'm just a good case for it. So we've caught up to the trolley line. This is where the trolley line makes its corner in its 2.2 mile track. And obviously that building there on the corner is quite old and quite cool. And these newer buildings here on the left, I believe they were constructed in the 90s, and that is the headquarters for the public transit system. All the buses is the main bus garage. And they have another major garage out in Brentwood, but this is the big one, the headquarters, originally built under the name Bi-State. Now they just call it Metro. So we're definitely getting into some more interesting stuff here. I will do my best to keep up. This building on the right is, I believe, the old Delmar High School, which probably closed in the 80s. I don't know. I'm sure I read it somewhere sometime, but it's been rehabbed into the trolley house for the Delmar Loop trolley project that they kind of really got going in 2016, 2017. It wasn't running yet when I filmed the route in October 2017. But that's where they keep the spare trolleys, and they had amassed quite a few for a while, but I think they overspent on trolleys. They had to liquidate a couple of them to keep the whole project on the rails, so to speak. Isn't that terrible? Now, for some reason, I know and want to tell you that this gray, garagey looking thing on the right was once upon a Dobbs, like 30 years ago. That Beverly is a big, fancy, all new construction building. We're inside the Metrolink stop, and to look at this same place and time 30 years ago would just be astounding. I remember being down here, but I don't have time to talk about that because we've caught an unusual moment here. Another headline of trolley troubles, as it is stuck behind that food service truck with its ramp down, unloading food for the local restaurant, and all these poor people here have to figure out if and when they can go around that thing, because, well, the trolley's stuck there, and that truck's probably going to be there at least 10-15 minutes. Several more new fancy buildings, student housing possibly, but a lot of this is due to the tireless efforts of Joe Edwards, a guy who batted 1,000 until one day he didn't and everyone turned on him. I'm just kidding, I don't think everyone turned on him, but I do have the vibe that everybody was cool with all of the stuff he was doing until he got this trolley thing to happen. And man, a lot of people throw him under the, well, trolley, I guess. Hey, so there's the building, the bank building. I told you it wasn't that interesting. The bank building that held the old Commerce Bank that historically Mark was talking about. And the big brown building on the right, for you retail geek fans, held a rather unique Blockbuster store there on the first floor. It seemed really huge for a Blockbuster back in its day. And those big circular columns that were in it, in front of it, were painted Blockbuster blue. And also I need to tell you, the empty restaurant there on the right is the second location of Cicero's. It was where it lived its second half from about 97 to 2017. This is where the trolley ends here, by the way. And that is City Hall on the right, that octagon, roundish looking building, which I should really pause. There's so much stuff going on here. Let me just back up a little bit. This is the Blockbuster building, which had these pillars were painted blue. So Cicero's, I believe, was founded in 1977, and people, Blueberry Hill still exists, and Cicero's came after Blueberry Hill, but they also have a pretty formidable set list, if you will, of famous people who played there. I mean, everybody knows Chuck Berry played at Blueberry Hill, but I believe he also played at Cicero's a lot of times, and, even back in the day, artists like Beck or, Green Jello, who made that silly song about the Three Little Pigs. But none of that happened here. That was all in the early 90s, and this is where their second location was. They finally folded up shop in 2017. This is the U City Library, and then this is the City Hall thing. And there is a searchlight on top of this that is like 100 years old, and it's been off and on over many decades, and there's been like a couple of hardcore enthusiasts who've managed to keep it going, and they're just about to do another round of restoration work to it so they can fire it off. I didn't mean to pause there. And if you really want to know, the place on the right, just past the Lions Gate, in case anybody needs to know, that's where the Scientologists are. So if you're looking for that, now you know where to find it. On the left here, on Del Mar, and I forgot to tell you when we crossed into the county, didn't I? Well, it was back where that Peacock Diner was. As near as makes no difference. You can probably find the actual sign. But I don't want to stop the video too much for my idle ramblings. But if you can see out the corner of the left here, it's just some epic estates here. And this is I think the eastern part of Del Mar, once upon a time looked at least this nice, and just kind of interesting how a few miles can be cared for and a few different miles are not cared for. Such is life. But we are in the county for sure. When we crossed into the county line, we entered U City. And here we are basically traveling a border. I don't think it's an exact border, but for all intents and purposes, we are traveling west, and University City is on the right to the north, and Clayton is to the left to the south. And Clayton is not only the county seat, is that right? It is, I believe, the wealthiest per capita city in the St. Louis area. Even more than Ladue, which is where I always thought all the money was growing up. And maybe it used to be. So we're getting kind of close to the end here. And if I recall correctly, I have a driving lecture for everybody coming up. you will see what I mean when I get there. Yes, I believe it has to do with this silver car here. There's a delivery truck blocking their lane, and it took them a while to notice it was in their lane. So I've already noticed it's in their lane, and I'm waiting to kind of find out what they're going to do. I'm expecting them to get in front of me, and they don't. They hit the brakes because they just now saw the truck. So then I had to
At Firestone Complete Auto Care, we don't settle for
make
good
sure
enough,
I could get by them
especially when it's
safely
about
and
saving you money.
proficiently. And the moral of the story is you have to not only pay attention to where you're driving, you have to pay attention to where other people are driving. I didn't know how that was going to play out. Was I going to see that car just rear-end that truck, or what? It was suspenseful. But I was trying to hold back to let them in. Kind of doesn't look like it, but I was. Anyway. Cool thing about a piece of film in a time and place in a never-changing city or landscape, as most of them are, for the most part, you can see buildings that are under construction, and that's really quite a brief window if you think about it. You know, this building under construction here is only going to have its exposed Tyvek, whatever they call it, visible for a very small percentage of the building's existence. Once it's up, it's up. And just a few weeks prior, there was probably nothing there. And a few weeks prior to this, now that big building we just saw on the left, that's been there for decades. But we have some freshly torn down parcel here for, I believe, a big fat retirement home, which will probably generate or bleed a lot more money than whatever was there before. And this is it, folks. We are coming to the end of Del Mar, at the intersection of Del Mar and Price. And I believe we have entered in the municipality of Olivet. And there's loads of little municipalities all throughout St. Louis County, of course. I'll try to remember, not everyone watching this may be from here. But there we are. That's the end of it. You can see the Ladue sign marking the township of Ladue down there to the left. And that was the first of 3 videos I have for you tonight. And we are going to move along to Laclede's Landing in the middle of a very quiet weeknight. And 2 years ago, this was August 20, so this is almost put out 3 years ago. And it has less views than average, but more views than usual. And this was a very good choice for the first inaugural live stream, because I made a joke here that if this video gets 3 likes, I'll release a director commentary version. And so now I consider that obligation fulfilled. Haha. This film was, I did this with organic audio from the area, even though it may not be true audio to the scene. It is organic audio to the area, and it provides some nice effects, and a way I didn't have to worry about how to deal with any kind of music. And I went through the effort to label the streets, which was industrious of me. Looks like this one's about 15 minutes long, and They just redid a bunch of streets here, and I don't know if you can tell, but that crosswalk and the slab that goes up the hill and meets is not very nice to most cars, which is why I took the exit at that bizarre angle like that. And these are the famous cobblestone streets that have, in one form or another, been here 200 something years, and it feels pretty rough to drive on, but at this time, can you hear the Metrolink announcer? Maybe not, I probably have the volume too low. But if you go and watch the videos, you can get those kind of, I don't know, moments, I suppose. Right now we're under the Eads Bridge, which is the oldest, the famous Eads Bridge. Great story behind that one. I'm not going to try to go down that rabbit hole right now. Although I probably should, because I lost my place in whatever I was talking about a minute ago. Oh, so I was saying how fixed up this is at this time, and I'm sure it's still, you know, this is only 3 years ago, so these repairs have held up. But this cobblestone used to be so much rougher. I mean, you could, some of the holes would swallow a wheel, and I feel like some of this, you know, they replaced with some nice brick crosswalks and some fresh concrete, and I think some of this, they actually pulled all the cobblestones out and tried to relay them down and make, you know, try again, make them smoother, adjust their little positions and whatnot. Well, so we have a chat called for Prez. Ha, I was narrating in advance of you narrating. Delmar is etched in my memory forever. Okay, I think I see what you're saying. Alright, well, cool. I like that. I rather enjoy this shot here. It's just smooth and quiet. And, well, it's liminal. I'm sorry for my liminal penchants. It just gives me a feeling, I guess. I don't want it to be empty all the time. I just want it to be empty when I'm there filming it in the middle of the night, that's all. Which reminds me, as though you don't see anybody around, I did eventually, well, I actually ended up talking to 2 people during this little adventure here. I don't know if it's worth telling, but down the way, coming up here on the right, was a park that they built, and I don't remember the lady's name right now, but I did make a little video about it, find it around here somewhere. But at this time it was still under construction, and after scoping the area and seeing how quiet it was, I did dare get out of my car for a few minutes to get some more shots and whatnot. And a guy on a dirt bike did kind of pop out of nowhere, and wanted to find out what I was up to and whatnot. And I had a pleasant conversation with him for a few minutes. I think he was living nearby, maybe in a homeless encampment. I believe he pretty much told me that. But he wasn't from the area. So who knows what that guy's deal was. But he seemed harmless enough. That was bizarre, wasn't it? Hey, at least it's a commercial for a real product. You know, I miss commercials for dish soap and laundry detergent. Now everything is some limited supply military weapon that they don't want me to have, and I better act now. So I want to explain why the film appeared to spaz out. That's because, you know, basically took that shot with 2 different cameras, and I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. So we already went down this path, and we get some better angles of the buildings. And the lights really are this orange. You can see the white balance. Pardon me. You can see the white balance of some of the fluorescent and white lights down the way. So that certainly gives it that old-timey Jack the Ripper feeling. You know, in case you wanted that sort of thing. I don't think anybody wants that sort of thing, except in a theme park. So the landing has historically, in my lifetime, small part of history of the landing, was a legendary party spot. There were lots of bars down here and restaurants over the years, and you know, I guess about, it's probably 15 years, going on 15 years now, maybe as few as 10. It used to get really rowdy and crowded down here, and you know, they just started having problems, and unfortunately, if I may be on my soapbox for a minute, unfortunately, St. Louis tends to address its problems by just closing things. So they installed these gates that closed off streets of the landing on Friday nights, and you know, I suppose that was cool for pedestrian safety and stuff, but you couldn't rely on the rhyme or reason. And some nights they would be closed, and some nights they wouldn't be, and just people kind of started getting out of control, and instead of maintaining control, they just kind of started taking the amenity away, unfortunately. I could go on and on and on with my grievance. There it is, the Catherine Ward Berg Garden. Yeah, shot here in the middle of the night, still under construction. I think I got final. They spent a long time putting this park together, I remember. And I don't know if I got final post-construction footage or not. I definitely have footage of this exact spot when it was flooding in 2019, and there was no inkling of this park under construction here at all. So I think that's just really cool how I can kind of accumulate these different points in time. Another thing I learned is, for a hot minute, the capital of Missouri was in one of these buildings down here on the landing. For a very brief amount of time. It could have been as little as one meeting. But I do remember hearing that somewhere. And then, of course, the state capital moved out to St. Charles on the other side of the Missouri River. There's a street out there called First Capitol Drive to try to solidify the point. And then at some point they decided that wasn't fair to people in Kansas City on the other side of the state, so they stuck it in the middle of Jefferson City, where it still is today. There's that terrible pointy on the right there. You can see that crosswalk and how the street goes down. I don't know if they fixed that, but if you ever drive down there, something that's not way off the ground. I've been down here and watched a couple of cars, with the few cars that drive down here, scrape over that. But getting back to how popular this place was once upon a time, it's nothing like that at all anymore. The bridge above us is the Martin Luther King Bridge. And looks like I'm going down this street again, but it's kind of funny. This street has a name, and on the other side of the bridge, which you would think would just be the westbound part of this street, is actually a separate street, and that's actually MLK Street, Martin Luther King Street. But you see what I mean about they just close things off, you know. There were kids ghost riding and hanging out and loitering down in front of the landing, which, you know, used to be a good wholesome pastime, I think, back in the day, as they say. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why that's not cool anymore. I don't know why, you know, why it doesn't work the same societally. You know, whether it's police enforcement or the manners of the citizens, what really changed there? But they put gates on that, and I can't even remember the last time I drove by the arch. I have a reason to suspect it might be open again, or at least you can maybe access it from one way, but for like 2 years, they just blocked the whole thing off. And that was always just kind of a cool thing, to drive all the way downtown and cruise your car between the river and the arch. Back when there was not only a McDonald's boat, but a Burger King boat, and all kinds of stuff. And it's not the same anymore. I think there's 1 or 2 straggling restaurants, but if you're coming to St. Louis, I don't know, I think you would feel weird if you came down here today and there's nothing but 1 or 2 restaurants and hardly any people. There needs to be multiple restaurants to support. Like that whole block there used to be full of places to dine, if I recall. Now, it's not... oh, there's the Wax Museum, which at least was holding out there at this time, back in... I think this was filmed in May of 22 or something. It took me a couple of months to get it out. And I also think Laclete's Landing goes in cycles. I think it was, you know, a hot spot, and then it fell out of fashion, and then it, you know, came back into fashion. And perhaps we're in at least one of these times where it's out of fashion again. Now that it's fixed up and better than ever, a lot of the stuff has, from what I understand, been converted to residential stuff. So there's probably some people enjoying their nice retrofitted apartments in historic buildings. I can't fault them for that. Everyone talks about mixed use all the time, so there needs to be some restaurants to balance that out. Okay, and that would be the end of that one. Published August 27th, 2022. Now that's the very famous
Cascade
Laclete's
Platinum Plus has the
Landing, of course.
grease-fighting power of Dawn to remove tough,
But
stuck-on foods.
on the
Cascade
other
Platinum
side
Plus.
of the arch,
Nature made.
interesting to always see what YouTube thinks my demographic is I didn't even know this was called Shoto's Landing until very recently, before making this video.
A canvassing of Shoto's Landing,
and I think
in
that's
2022, before they might start sprucing up the place.
That's a pretty rare,
if you know about St.
rarely
Louis,
known
you
name.
probably have heard of Laclete's Landing and
worried
the
about this
historic
one being a little too
entertainment,
loud, so
dining, and increasing increasingly residential district on the Mississippi River just north of the arch.
Don't need to
and
get
the
confused with the
Ridge.
old
But
narration
much
and the
less
new
well-known
narration.
is Shoto's
So
Landing,
I made this
south of
film
the arch
because
towers
there was a lot of
and
talk
Bridge.
at the time of a new development project.
That's probably
And
because
there's,
it's a
you know, every few
industrial
years
area,
always
tightly
talk of a new
isolated
development
by major
project.
interstates
And
pockmarked
4
with
out of
decay
5
and
don't really
structures
happen.
not
I would
featured
say
on
that
any
record
tourist
is
maps or real
actually
estate
greatly
websites.
improved. My feeling was for a
Probably
while
few
that,
sparse
you know,
businesses and a super historic church
1 out
still
of
operate in this
20
area, much of what
actually
is
would
left
ever
is
happen.
abandoned, neglected, and littered with
And then they,
moderate
you know,
amounts
wouldn't be
of
quite what you
graffiti and
wanted.
trash.
But this was a very industrial area
It's been this way for
and
decades,
not
as
nearly
long
as
I can
favorable
remember,
to
going back
tourism
to
and
the
history
1990s. It is an
and
eerie place, but a popular
as
connector
Laclede's
to the
Landing
St.
would
Louis
be.
riverfront,
But it's
with
very
walkers,
historically
cyclists,
significant and
visiting
interesting.
tourists who may likely
And
simply feel they have made a seriously wrong turn somewhere. With
it's
talks of
some
redevelopment
amazingly
again in 2022, this
bleak-looking
film takes a slow look
infrastructure.
around the area with multiple shots from various angles in an
And I
extended,
still,
deliberate way.
I don't know, I still find something
Redevelopment
interesting and
cited to
compelling
cost
about it.
$1.2 billion
It's,
comes from a New
I,
York
I
firm
think it's
that
not that it's,
seemingly have a number
I
of
like seeing it
development successes
look
to their
terrible.
credit.
I like
But from
seeing
what I
that
could gather,
it's been
none of
around
those
or
were
something.
anywhere
I
near
like seeing that
proposed
it's
magnitude
old.
of
It
this
gives it
one.
some sort of authenticity. You look at this Crendon Martin sign, and you just know that no one has painted that in decades. So that's how it was. That's your connection back in time to the same paint, the same sign, the same structure that someone else, maybe even you, could have been standing there in the same spot looking at 30 years ago, and it would basically look the same.
On the bright side, several of these buildings are on the National Register of Historic Places. So whatever happens,
I did forget to
those
mention
will
Mississippi
hopefully
Nights.
safely
It
restored
was
for preservation.
that was
One is St.
another
Mary's
place of
Victories,
absolute
the
legends.
second
I believe
oldest
their
Catholic
last
church in
day
St. Louis, circa
was
1843.
January of
But the
2017.
big feature
So
here is the Crendon Martin
they made it
complex,
further into the
a
21st
collection of
century than
7 mostly brick buildings built from 1904 to 1920.
it
or
may
so.
seem. But
Crendon Martin was a
yeah, that
manufacturer
was
of furniture and other
that was
various
definitely a
products
cool
for
place.
nearly
They had
100 years.
over 21
Traces
section
dates
and
back
under
to
21 section,
1876,
so
but
you
closed
kind of
in
felt like
1930.
everyone was sort of welcome there. And they definitely
The
hosted
4.5
some
million square
bands
foot
that
complex
had
was
some
sold
big
at
names
auction in
there too.
1982 for an astoundingly measly $90,000.
And of
That's
course, yeah,
18
the old
cents
spaghetti
per square
factory. I did
foot
not mention that
cubic
either.
feet. Since then, the building has
So,
subsequently hosted a few other commercial purposes.
I believe that says
in the
Galt
last
for Prez. It's
40
over there
years,
way on the other
including
screen.
A banking vault operation and the
But,
current standing resident, the Acme Janitorial Supply Company.
Getting back
The
to
first
Shoto's
witness
Landing,
concerning Wild Bee Custodian.
the empty lot. Oh well, that just changed image here. So I'll have to try to. Well, I won't pause it.
This non-conforming concrete
Well, I'm sure we'll see it
building
again.
known as Number 7 was the latest addition designed by
Very
the
sorry, I got
then
completely
builder
distracted.
in
The idea was
1920.
to film how all this looked, you know, it being neglected for all these years, and you know, because there was a chance that something was going to happen, and you know, what they were talking about, you know, $1 billion plus, and all the usual development idealistic ideas. This is a nice overview of the area. You can see how much stuff is already empty and kind of ready to go. Here up on the left, I realize you probably can't see my mouse, but that was the
Now for an
St. Mary
unsolicited
Victory's
personal
Church,
rant.
the second oldest Catholic church, which is
I
still
suppose it's a
open
challenging spot to repurpose
as
a
of now.
medium-sized industrial
But
manufacturing
most of
church
everything
on
else
the
is
line,
moved out of
especially
here.
with all these legally entrenched railroad trestles everywhere.
Plenty of
But I have a theory as to
graffiti
why
art
maybe this
exhibitionism.
land has a better chance where several
But
others
Crendon
have
Martin
failed.
was a manufacturing
Just look at
company
all the
that
seemingly wasted real estate on the downtown riverfront. Now imagine you're a developer from
they have a
New York.
long storied
Everything
history,
is
but
inordinately
they
expensive,
basically
and
closed down
building
here
stuff
back in
as difficult as
1990
possible with a million
and
hurdles. After
occupied
that,
multiple
about
of
a fourth
these
of the
buildings.
space
I
you
believe
make
there's
has to
7
go
of
to
them. They
profitless
kind of
government
identified them
price-controlled
by
housing
number.
stipulations.
Don't remember
And
exactly
then
which
here in
one
St.
is
Louis
which.
is a massive and cheap property
The
of
research
hidden
in the
prime real estate with
original
just a
narration of the
couple
video is
minor
probably
historical appliances
better.
to incorporate in a city
We are
that
under the
taxes
MacArthur
and
Bridge,
will
I
let you fill
believe,
the thing
which
up with
used to
expensive
carry Route
apartments if you
66.
like, and demand
It's still a train
cities
bridge
refuse
today,
to unburden
but the
themselves
upper
with
deck
decades
for
of
automobiles
blighted
was
hot
closed
potato.
in 1981.
As I consider myself a proper
It was
Missourian,
considered
despite what my
archaic
short
and
certificate says,
unsafe.
Whenever I hear a development cost number,
And,
the first thing I do
I
is
never got to see
multiply
it
by
because,
1.5, especially if local tax incentives
I
get
wasn't in
involved,
St. Louis
which they surely will, as recent
that point in history.
teaches us that's the only way big developers will let go of the big carrots they dangle. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for correct.
I really like before and after pictures of places. I find that
just not forget
quite interesting.
every time we try to
So,
get anything done. For once, I'd like to see the private developer put in all the
it's
money and
kind of
take
rare
all of the
to
profit, minus the standard taxes
individually
that we
get
generated
both
over
ends of a
Whatever
spectrum of any
happens,
meaningful
it's
amount of
fair.
time.
That's the way it works for
But
our
I was
local
here in 22
entrepreneurial
to film
citizens
this, and this is how it
one-off
looked.
neighborhood ice cream
And,
retail shops or industry
that was the
services,
point.
but I don't hear about any of those
I guess I don't need to
services
say at
getting
this point
taxed
that the
financing.
boys from New York and their
Probably
$1 billion
curb
deal
income
that they were
with
talking
some
about
opinions now because I don't want
certainly
to be
hasn't
enemies in this
appeared to
town.
happen yet.
So I will just get on with my usual
I've
MO
been
of
down here
sanitized
this
tour
year,
guide.
and it's basically the same. When that was going on, right about this time, there was one business left here in this one building. The door was on the other side of the side we're seeing now, and they were basically forced to pack up and move their operations somewhere else. And I think they probably kept hearing rumors for a long time, and it was probably better off for them because, there wasn't some grandiose plan that was off and on again all the time that they had to worry about. They just let their lease expire or whatever and moved on. That building there, I believe, burned in 2011. And this is the
One of the most important and
St.
prominent
Mary
features of
Victory's
the area
Hungarian
is St.
Catholic
Mary
Church,
Victory's Hungarian Catholic
which,
Church on South 3rd Street between Cedar and Gratiot, a street only locals
I did a
know
couple
how
of takes
pronounce,
on that.
and
I
yet
got to
still debate
film
over.
inside there extensively and
In the
talk to
background here, you
the
can see the MacArthur Street
the
Bridge,
pastor at the
once
time.
Missouri entrance to Route
And
66
boy,
since
he knew a lot of stuff
1933.
about the
It has
church,
only
and
serviced train
just
traffic since 1981, when
delightfully,
they closed the
to my
automobile
delight,
deck, which coincidentally
spilled
was
it all
finally
out
being
to camera
dismantled
for
during
me
the time of
in
this
like
filming.
a professional. In this building here, at least at this time, there was one of those horse carriage and buggy operations, and I feel like there was 3, if not 4, of them all operating down here at the same time. And I got some footage from the inside of one of them one day, and it's no longer there. So I have this very interesting footage of these old buggies and these horses in this dingy old building. And I don't know where they went off to. It was that blue building. It's one story with the garage door half open on the right. It's just coming out of shot. It was in that building there.
If all this happens.
I went back later, and all the doors were open, and the people had been sleeping in there and whatnot. And then when I went back again, it was at least all sealed up for the moment. This is just really interesting prime real estate. It's just kind of insane to think about how this area could just be so undervalued. And it's very difficult now, I imagine. You've got all these interstates going through, connecting and merging, and plus the railroads. And, there's not much moving out of the way of a railroad. Those guys are awfully grandfathered in.
This green grassy parcel was the former site of Powell Square,
Yeah, I'm talking about it right now in the actual video about Powell Square. So I'm completely superfluous to this operation. I should be telling you, well, I don't know what I could tell you about filming this, other than it's not the most comfortable place to film. You don't know what locals are watching you from the woods, I suppose.
There for now, but I wish this project well and hope it is done to my liking. Not that it matters.
I think I come off as pretty harmless
no
most of the
body by
time, so
lens,
people tend to leave me alone.
capturing and curating a little supplementation to documentation. During the relatively short time, I am enjoying my existence between the earth and the sky. Perhaps some of the more experienced viewers of my work may have perceived that once I deliver the TYFW, metaphorically class is dismissed, and they can watch something else now, as there will be no new information coming forth that is worth sticking around for. But I'd like to point out the movie is only half over, and there's a lot of really cool shots and angles coming up that you might like to see. And with that, thank you for watching.
I think you definitely have to be in the right kind of mood to watch my stuff. This is very slow paced, kind of by design and on purpose. Not everything I make is like this, but I think I go into it mentally with the idea of, you know, the scenery is fleeting, and you want to properly capture it when you have the opportunity. I guess that's it. And you know, short of doing it with the 360 camera, sometimes you just need to film the same thing more than once to get the different angles and perspective and the layout. So it is what it is. Well, we're getting pretty close to the end here. There's only about 7 minutes of this video left. So I don't really know yet how I'm going to wrap this up, but hopefully this video had some value. like to thank Galt for Prez for showing up to my live stream and typing a comment or two.
What you want to do is save hundreds when Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance.
That's great, but can you ask your friend to...
I think one commenter is about all I can handle, so there's no worries there. Makes me kind of wonder how these people do it, how they can keep up with their comments. Maybe it's easier if they're not trying to think of something to say about a video that they shot previously. The old MacArthur Bridge. One day, who knows, this could be all full of modern apartment buildings. The plan was to take these old buildings, at least some of them. That one that burned out in 2011, from what I understand, is full of lead and asbestos and all those good things. And so it has to be done perfectly tomorrow. But as far as the other parts of it, it seems like, you know, if you built it and kept it safe, it would be quite an enviable residential market. But we're not ready for that yet. And I think I mentioned before, it's got to be really tough with these spaghetti strap railroads going everywhere. Buildings have to be more expensive because of the soundproofing. Maybe they could build one of those buildings where the train goes through it as a fun, like a novelty. I'm sure train enthusiasts would love that. And for what it's worth, I have assembled a second playlist that tries to shake things up more than this one does a little bit. This one featured 3 very casual, rather slow videos. And they're all obviously very St. Louis centric. And I've come up with it. I've tried to change things up a little bit for a second one of these. The jury is still out on if and when that'll ever happen. Again, that's where Powell was. And that's the one building that's probably causing lots of problems. And that little barn down there with the car parked outside, that's the horse and carriage place I was talking about. Which should appear one day. Just a little throwaway video of interest. Because, you know, I don't mind filming the small little things. I mean, if I were smart, I would go try to make the biggest video about City Museum I could. But there's a lot of other things to film. Things that are overlooked. Things that are kind of ignored. I mean, I must have driven past this historic church from 1843 a few thousand times before I even noticed it was there, and it was pointed out to me. And that's kind of the way the St. Louis is. It's got so much history in every little nook and cranny sometimes.
It's just no way to keep up with all of it. Some nice views. Opportunistic views, if I may say so myself. And I was lucky to get them. Anyways, if I continue doing this, which I think I want to, hopefully I will become more comfortable in my own skin and better at it. And maybe we'll get a little more interaction and see how it goes. Just to be clear, I don't have a plan. I just thought I would do this and role play, if you will. And there we have it. And that was released back in January of 23. Okay. If I was more prepared and smoother, I would have done that. And maybe that. There we go. We are back. And that's going to be it for tonight. Thanks again to everybody. And awkward closing statements of live stream complete. See you next time.